Jó reggelt! Sziasztok! Good morning. Hello and welcome to Amuse. I'm Tom, your MC. We want to have a special thanks to the volunteers who organized the conference and who made this day happen. Thank you to the conference committee and to the volunteers. Special thanks to the fabulous speakers that we have lined up for you. We thank you for your time and your kind and generous sharing. And of course, this conference only happens with you. Thank you for making the trip and for being here. We want to also give our appreciation to sponsors Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, and EPOM, and all the other sponsoring organizations for their generous support. And we also want to give special shout out to Prezi and for IBM Budapest Lab for organizing the conference. Now, a conference is only partially defined by the speakers and the content. It's also defined by the community of people who show up for it. And so we want to take a moment now to review with you the code of conduct for Amuse. Be excellent with each other. Our conference is dedicated to providing a harassment-free conference experience for everyone, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. We do not tolerate harassment of conference participants in any form. Sexual language and imagery is not appropriate for any conference venue, including talks, workshops, parties, Twitter, and other online media. Conference participants violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the conference without a refund at the discretion of the conference organizers. That may be a lot to remember, so we'll keep it simple. Be excellent with each other. Now, just a word about safety. We're super happy to be back here at the Hungarian Railway History Park. It's, I think you've already discovered, an inspiring place. It certainly is funky. It's super Instagrammable, and it's somewhat dangerous. So here's a short guide to how you can survive the conference safely. In case of a fire, don't panic and leave the venue fast, mindful of others around you. All the doors are fire exits, including these green doors over here on the side. You just turn the crank and they open up. Please watch your step. It's easy to trip on a rail or even on this panel up here in the front, which I did several times, especially if you're walk-tweeting. So just be very mindful and aware of your feet. Also, there are moving trains around, including a tiny little choo-choo, so you really need to pay attention. There's a turntable out here that I've been told has a 1.5 meter deep pit. Do not fall in the pit. You might be tempted to climb a train, and I've been asked to invite you to reconsider that because apparently they're covered in some sort of oil or grease, and you will be covered in some kind of toxic substance and slip, which would be tragic. I'm also happy to announce that the ambulance is already here, but just as a precaution, it's just in case we need it, so that no one's in it yet. But don't be that person, the first person in the ambulance, please. Now, just a little bit of insight about who's here at the conference. There are 600 people at Amuse this year, and the group is quite diverse. In fact, it's the most diverse it's been in the 5 years that Amuse has run. There are 43 countries represented this time, and it's a bit like the Olympics. Europe is well represented. Let's hear it from the Europeans here. Also here are people from India. India, do you dare applaud? No. South Korea, Philippines, Singapore, Brazil, Australia, Canada, and the US. Okay, more polls. By applause, how many people, this is your first Amuse conference, the first time? Welcome, welcome. And then people who've been to several Amuse conferences, let's hear it from you as well. All right. Amazing. Okay, one more poll. How many people here, this is your first time visiting Budapest? Welcome. Hope you enjoy it. I had the luxury of living here for 3 years. You heard the extent of my Hungarian a minute ago. That is just a stunning and beautiful and inspiring place. There's a Slack channel in case you need more Slack. There's an Amuse conference Slack, and you can get all this awesome info by pointing your browser to amuseconf.com and go to /welcome. And there you'll find the instructions for how to get onto Slack. There's a rippin' good party tonight at Onkert, and special thanks to EPOM for hosting the party. And if you're interested in AI, there's good news for you. There's a free workshop today at 1:30 called Artificial Intelligence in Azure. So, just a short story about me and a slightly embarrassing activity. So I'm co-founder and CEO of Orbital Music Park. It's a inclusive creative space for music in Richmond, Virginia, which is about 2 hours south of Washington, D.C. And before that, I worked at Prezi here in Budapest. But I'm wondering, by a show of hands, how many people here are musicians? Okay, I see maybe 12 hands. How many people play an instrument or sing and karaoke counts? Way more hands. Well, I've spent thousands of hours playing and jamming in bands and also in cross-functional product teams, and I'm learning how connected UX design and music really are. And to demonstrate this connection, we've arranged a special music performance this morning to start the conference. But first, just a bit of a short story. This place, Orbital Music Park, is really focused on solving 3 big problems. One is the journey of learning an instrument as an adult can be very lonely. It can be very hard also to find collaborators, people to jam with, because it's a chemistry challenge. Are people on the right skill level? Do they are interested in certain types of music, that kind of thing. And then once you find people to play with, where are you going to go make a big noise together? You're coming over to my house? I'm not going into your basement. So there has to be some other place to play, and that's what we've been working on solving at the park. So in a big warehouse, we've built these little soundproof pods where groups of people can come make some noise together. And the rooms have all the instruments already inside. This is what it looks like inside. We've really tried to design it so that the space feels more like a living room, and the weird angles in the ceiling help with the acoustics, so it really feels like a more organic experience. We fill the rooms with all kinds of funky instruments, like this vintage 1970s Fun machine, which has a rockin' drum machine built into it. Fun just shoots out of this thing, and you turn it on. And then we've sort of created the park in a way that is sort of quirky and fun, and actually quite inspired by Budapest. I spent a fair amount of time, you might guess, hanging out in some of the ruin pubs here in town, and we've kind of captured some of that energy and brought it with us to Virginia. This is our artist in residence, Carmel Clavin, doing a cabaret. And now I want to play for you just a short video of some of the jams that can happen. So what I captured in that moment are 5 people who had never known each other 5 minutes before that happened. They just hopped up on the stage and started making something together. And that's the spirit of what we're trying to do there. It turns out there's some really interesting connection points between UX design and music, and I want to share a couple with you right now. One of our first big mistakes at Orbital was to focus on musicians, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but we learned that there are many, many more people making music who would never call themselves musicians. Musician has sort of like this label about it. It's like this identity. Maybe it's professionals who do this stuff. Maybe you're in an orchestra or you're in a band or something. You're a musician. But there's so many more people who do not feel like they have earned the title musician. And using the word musician actually excluded people from the community that we wanted to build. So we switched up, and now we use the phrase music maker. And sure enough, at our music park, we see the whole rainbow, the diverse rainbow of all different kinds of music maker, from the super beginner all the way up to the super pro. Now, think how this applies to your organization. Who's included in the design process? Who's excluded from the design process? Likely you'll find that there are many, many more people making design decisions who are not designers. I'm here to tell you that anyone can make music and anyone can design, and they do. The quality of the outcome, though, depends on skills and experience, no question. Outcomes are usually better when we play with a band, when we design with a team, when we design with customers. So inclusion is the first mindset. I've jammed with hundreds of people over the years in bands and in cross-functional teams, and I've finally discovered the secret to magical collaboration. It's the ability to do your part with excellence while also being completely mindful of the excellence of the people around you. It's deeply listening to the greater context around. And that's a hard skill to actually learn. And listening is not taking orders. That's different. Listening means you absorb the sounds and the insights around you, and you use them to fuel your creative process. The best bands can listen as well as they play. And the third point is that creative people often have a very dysfunctional relationship with the inner critic. How's your relationship with your inner critic? Right now, mine is telling me this is a bad idea. I should have not made this point. But it's that annoying inner voice that harshly judges your performance in real time. And it's a problem for music makers, and it's a problem for UX designers. It's a problem for all of us. So my advice is acknowledge it without believing everything it tells you. And treat it with compassion, because it's part of you. And actually, it's a very biased opinion you're receiving. And now, friends, it's showtime. Are you ready for the performance? Cool. We will now hear a composition by the composer Pauline Oliveros. She was a pioneer of electronic music in the 1960s, and here she is operating some, I don't know what, maybe a buchla. And today we're going to hear her composition entitled Tuning Meditation. It's from 1971, and it's part of her series called Deep Listening. And I see that the orchestra has arrived because the orchestra is us. The orchestra is us. Pauline composed this particular piece not for me to perform for you, but for you to perform for each other. And here's how to do it. Inhale deeply. Everybody can inhale. Air. We're inhaling just the air. Okay. All right, you can do that. When you exhale, sing absolutely any note. Okay. So your inner critic is like, hell no, I'm not singing this. I'm not doing this. Don't do this. You can't sing. I am so not a singer, super below singer, and I'm going to sing. So I hope you'll face your inner critic and make some sound come out of your face for a couple of minutes. The next step is to listen to the sounds around you. This is the fun part. As you're holding your note, you'll hear other people singing. Really kind of hold what you're doing in an equal balance with what you hear around you. And then you're going to match your next note to one of the sounds you hear in the room. On your next breath, you can make a new note. And then we'll repeat the cycle. So I've done this performance several times with audiences as much as 70, never with 600. This is also an impressive debut because this is the first time this composition has ever been performed in a Hungarian railway museum. So you're part of history in the making. The other advice is to really be patient with this. Let it unfold. You're going to want to rush through it and get it over with. I know Josh is anxious to get up on stage too. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes and let's hear it. So at this point, I'm going to join the orchestra, and when you're ready, inhale deeply and sing any note. Thank you for singing. Thank you for listening. Really beautiful. Thank you. So our invitation to you in the next 2 days is to listen deeply. Find the joy of listening deeply to the conference speakers, to each other, and to yourself. And welcome.